when we're on a path that isn't us, there's still a safety and like it's super well worn and I can see where it leads, or I think I know where it leads. And so it feels good to be on it. But when you talk about doing something outside of the norm, you don't have as many reference points. I think it's so much easier to think about everything that you have today that you might lose.
Hi, I'm Kim Tolson and I'm the traveling therapist. It's my passion to teach therapists how to navigate online private practices and multiple income streams so they can travel the world. I'm a digital nomad with a virtual insurance-based private therapy practice and a multi-six-figure coaching business. I'm obsessed with entrepreneurship and developing tools that can help therapists live an adventurous lifestyle. In this podcast, I will discuss my journey as a digital nomad. I'll chat with other traveling therapists and help you navigate the complexities of running an online insurance-based practice. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Traveling Therapist. We're still in season 2 and I've been interviewing different experts, not necessarily traveling therapists, but travelers that have niches. And this one is amazing. I'm so excited to announce Katrina McGhee. She's here with us. And Katrina, I just want to turn it over to you so you could just tell everybody what you do because I think it's amazing.
Oh, thank you so much, Kim. What a fun way to put me in. Okay, so I am a career break and sabbatical coach. And so what that means is
Wow.
I help other people take breaks. I help them quit their jobs and do amazing things like travel around the world, take the time to write a book, but basically to create a plan that will allow them to have a really successful and amazing career break experience and create more success once they return from that break. So from beginning to end, really helping them plan for that and make sure that it is everything they want, everything they need, and even more.
Wow, this is so amazing to me. When we decided to have her a guest on the show, I was like, I've never even heard of this. It's amazing. But it's such a real thing. Like, especially us as therapists, we have a really hard time taking off extended periods of time because we worry about our clients. What happens if they have a crisis? How am I going to work that in? So we really struggle with taking time off, And of course, my sort of niche is still working and traveling at the same time. But somebody like you is so important for somebody that's just like, you know what, I need like 6 months off or a year or something just to go explore and live my life. So I'd love to hear about like, how does the process work? Like, how do you, when you sit down with somebody, like, how do you even help us decide like how long your sabbatical should be or even where to start with it?
Yeah, that is such a good question. So, I mean, it absolutely is a very personal experience. And so everybody's break would look different. But, the very sort of like grounding things that I want to understand are one, why are you taking this break? And a lot of times you can sort of say a surface reason, like I feel burned out, but I want to understand on a deeper level, right? Have you been feeling burned out for a long time? Do you feel like you're just living a life that's not in alignment? Is it that kind of burned out? Or is it like, I actually do like what I do, but, like you had mentioned, like I give so much to my clients, I give so much to other people that I feel like there's nothing left for me. So really understanding the deeper why behind they needing this time will help me understand how long this time needs to be and kind of what it needs to be about. But I'm also really big on getting clear on themes. And so I, work with all of my clients to plan a break that has 3 to 4 career break or sabbatical themes. And
Nice.
those are really like usually like one word answers that define a very deep need for this break and what success means on this time, right? So for some people, it could be healing, it could be restoration, it could be connection, it could be reconnection, it could be adventure, it could be learning, it could be detoxing, right? But understanding those bigger themes is really important to figure out, okay, if I need these 4 things, what kinds of things are going to bring me, adventure? What kind of things are going to bring me healing? And then we can start to put a timeline together. Now, realistically, some people are definitely sort of like limited with their funds, right? So they have a certain amount of money that they have available or that they feel like they can save. And so you can also start with that, right? You can say, this is the amount of money I have. And so, I'm thinking I could take, 4 to 6 months off. But then we go back to what do I need? What does this experience need to have for me to be successful? And we try to work within that budget if the budget comes first, right? But it's really, to me, answering that question is understanding why you're on this break, what you need from it, and then figuring out how long you need to be sort of on this, in this spacious moment to make it work for you and to get everything that you were wanting to get out of it.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, especially I know therapists right now, like we've been dealing with COVID-19 for ourselves and our clients for like years now. Oh my gosh. So it's so important to understand like the type of burnout. Is it just like you're tired of your clients? Is it like you just can't listen to another minute of it? Is it just like your environment's driving you crazy like and you need to
Yeah.
just get away? Like that is such
Yeah.
an important distinction.
It is. And you guys like therapists hold space, right? For people.
Yeah.
And you have to really, deal with heavy things. And so I think it really is important to understand, that burnout. I see this in nonprofit people as well, where it's
Mm.
sort of this mentality of, I'm so used to focusing on the other person's needs, right? And I feel almost guilty taking a step away and like really giving myself that space because I know people need me and I know that my work is making a difference and that, like it's creating a positive impact. And so how do I not feel selfish or crazy, for trying to take a step away from that, but how do I do it in a way that feels good? And so I think there are extra layers, for some people around taking that time off and giving yourself permission to take that time off.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So how does it work when you work with providers like us, like that, have a steady caseload that we see all the time? Are there strategies around that to how to take the sabbatical or how to offload your clients and then reload your clients? Just curious about
Yeah,
that.
that's such a great question. So, I think it depends person by person clearly. And for some people, it's really like a shorter break. It's just like I need to fully disconnect and just breathe, right? And I need
Mm.
to fully like just let some things go and then I can come back on. And so that can be, sort of easier to take space on. But I think, if you were wanting to take a 3 or 6 month break and really just, like take time for you or travel around the world or go live, in Southeast Asia for 4 months. At that point, right, I think it becomes painting a picture of what success looks like for you. So if it looks like being able to fully be present for that break and disconnect, it's managing your people to other resources, referring them out and figuring out what that transition will look like when you come back. I have worked with clients that run their own practice. And so,
Yeah.
there's like a bigger financial piece to that as well. When they're referring them out, it's understanding what they're coming back to. But ultimately, it's something that requires a lot of creative thinking and some resourcefulness. But at the end of the day, the other option is that you have your body or life put a hard stop to the pace that you're running and the life that you're living. And then you don't get to proactively create a break. You're just like stopping everything because of a health issue or because, like something has blown up and you don't have the choice. And so I love to help people when they're in that place of having a desire and wanting to really like honor what is true for them. I love helping to give them the tools and to creatively problem solve with them to figure out a way to make that happen, because
Hmm.
otherwise the choice is that you just keep running until you've got nothing left. And then that doesn't look pretty, right?
Yeah, I guess your body, I mean, we as therapists know this, your body's going to shut you down if you don't take the break. Eventually, you're going to get some sort of like stress-induced illness or, just like total complete burnout where you just can't function. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we don't want that.
Yes. So, like, I'm hearing you like say identifying the warning signs beforehand that you need this break is so important, probably because when it gets to that point where it is burnout, complete burnout, you're not even gonna have the energy probably to go do something like this, a sabbatical,
Yeah,
really.
and the healing,
Yeah.
I had definitely have clients that have hit that place, but I think then what happens is that healing becomes the very sort of most pressing, first, it's like the first theme and it's the biggest theme. And so you spend time on your break just healing, right? Instead of maybe doing some of
Yeah.
the other things you'd want to do, it's like you've got to really pull it back together. And I actually have a client now who is on a break and she had to go onto leave with her job and
Hmm.
go into FMLA, but she needed to take the time and clear the space because her body had just shut down on her, right? From the
Yeah.
stress of go, go, go for so many years and ignoring it. And so, 60% of her break is about healing. And there's beauty in that, right? And there's beauty in the discovery of that and who she becomes as a person that puts herself and her self-care first. But, if we could have worked together 3 years ago or 4 years
Yeah.
ago, maybe she would be planning for a trip around the world instead.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely. So I'm just so curious, like I'm sure you have just all kinds of clients with different experiences, but what would be like a typical sabbatical? Like I know there's nothing typical, but maybe some examples of, because in my mind it's like it probably could be anything from a social media break, like detox even, or just like a full on like year around the world, don't talk to anybody kind of thing. So I'm just curious, like what kind
Yeah.
of different things do you plan for people? I'm really interested in that.
Yeah. So again, we get clear on what you need, but some examples of past clients and what a sabbatical has looked like for them. So of course, there are the trips around the world. There are also in that travel space, I have a client right now who's so fun. She's a teacher and she's amazing and she's taking a sabbatical for 1 year, but she's going to move to France and she's a French teacher and she's gonna like immerse herself and take classes, right? So she's really having like that residential local relocation type of experience
Wow.
versus a backpacking, like going around the world type of experience. So you have, that and everything in between. But other clients have done things like, I have a client that has a partner, he has a wife and a small child. And so for him, he did a lot of internal work on his break and he
Hmm.
started creating space to have hobbies again and, ended up like taking in some chickens and learning about
Oh.
like, yeah, learning about tending chickens and helping his neighbor who was a beekeeper, like learning about bees and doing a lot of journaling and really processing, on his spiritual journey, on his personal journey, and just trying to like access this part of him. He was a healthcare provider. And I think he was feeling similar to what you had mentioned earlier, COVID, just extra, extra on
Hmm.
top of,
Hmm.
already overextending. And so I think he really needed to reconnect with himself and find some transformation in changing his life to move forward. But I've had other clients, I personally took a road trip around the US and
Oh,
visited friends
wow.
and family. And so I plotted out where everyone was and I made a big circle and I just sort of visited all these people I hadn't seen in years that I really loved and wanted to connect with. For some people, it means going home and spending time with family and just being present, right? Like not being there on a rushed holiday in a frenzy of like, holiday fervor, but like really truly just being present for the normal everyday stuff and just being able to really connect in that way. Vipassana 10-day silent meditation retreats. I did a
Oh,
yoga teacher training that was part of, being on my sabbatical. I did that in Bali and that was a very interesting experience.
oh my
But
gosh.
but
Neat.
yeah, but the sky is the limit really. And it comes down to what do you need and how do we make sure that you get it? I have another couple they hiked the Camino de Santiago in Spain. They hiked that together. And so
Oh,
they went out there and they sort of like temporarily relocated to Spain for a few months and hiked that over, I think, a 6 week period. But
oh my
so
God.
fantastic. Yeah, so fantastic. So many, many things from being at home to, being nearby to going far away, anything you want. I have another client that's writing a book. And so she's at home, right? But a
Yeah.
lot of her break is about like learning how to be a writer and getting this book that's been in her head for years, like out onto paper.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So will somebody come to you and say, like, I want to hike this trail in Spain? Or do you like say, you know what, based on what you're telling me, I think this would be perfect? Like, do you try to help like curate the destinations?
Oh, that's so good. That's such a great question. I definitely am available to that. So for that, so I personally have traveled to more than 40 countries. I don't really
Oh
keep track. I don't
gosh.
remember, but yeah, I've been a lot of places. And so I have a lot of, firsthand knowledge and then secondhand knowledge from similarly nomad friends and doing, sort of connecting with other nomads. But basically, at the end of the day, most of my clients have dreams. And so they might not
Hmm.
have fostered or cultivated that dream, but when they come to me and I'm like, what is it you want to do? They'll be like, oh, when I was a little girl, I dreamed of going to Valencia, Spain, and I don't know why, but I need to see Valencia,
Oh, oh, I just
right?
got goosebumps.
I know. It's like so. I mean, when she told me, I got goosebumps, and so she's doing that, right? And that's like her plan, and so she knows
Ah,
that. But once she says, "I'm going to Valencia," it's like great, and then I can say, "Well, you're going to be there in March. Do you know about the Las Fallas Festival, which is the biggest, like, it's a fire festival in Valencia?" And she's like, "No," and I'm like, "You need to check that out and maybe time your visit." And then I'm like, "Since you're in Spain and you love food, have you been to San Sebastian? It's a very foodie town and it's on the water, and you should look at going." And so I can definitely, drop ideas and I have a lot of ideas to share, but I like to start with what is true for them. And that's one of the biggest things is I think sometimes people come with ideas of sexy breaks or sexy travel trips that they saw on Instagram or that they heard
yeah.
about someone taking, right? Like I want to go learn to surf in Hawaii. There's nothing wrong with that, but I want to make sure they really want to go learn to surf in Hawaii
Yeah,
before we
right.
start planning that. And so I like to start with what is true for them and help them let go of trying to replicate someone else's experience. And then I can add a lot from that starting point.
That's amazing. Yeah, because that's how therapists are too. We kind of like start where the client is, and I also think there's like an intuitive process to it, also. So probably you get to know the client, and then it just kind of like comes to you, like, oh my gosh, this would be perfect,
Yes.
kind of thing.
Yes, yes, that's so true. That's such a great way to word it. Yeah, there's like that intuitive sense too as you put the pieces together. I definitely, yeah, you have ideas and you're like, oh, I'm feeling like you need to know about this.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's so so cool. Right. So I guess, I'm just thinking if you get a new client, there's probably like, what do they call it? Like objections, right? Like, well, I can't do this because of that. Like, do you work on that sort of mindset thing? Because I would imagine that probably comes up a lot, right?
All the time. Yeah. So I'm a certified life coach. And,
Oh,
for
nice.
me, that is a fundamental piece of what I do. So I'm not a travel planner, right? Like my goal is not to help you have a very detailed itinerary. It's to make sure that we're getting clear on what you want and need and that we're removing all of the obstacles that stand in your way of getting that. And so
Nice.
overcoming fears, overcoming objections is 100% a part of what I have to do with like every single client. Now, to what degree, right? Depends on the
Mm-hmm.
person. But, there's so many objections, right?
Yeah.
Some of my clients have partners, they have spouses, or they have, like children. And so feeling like they have the permission to take this time that they feel like they need and what that looks like, and it's like overcoming worry about how it's going to be perceived. I
Mm.
mean, pretty much everyone I've ever worked with has some fear around their career. It could be financial. It's usually about what happens when I come back. Will my clients be there, or will a company want to hire me? Like, what will I be coming back to? But it's
Mm.
also like if you've worked very hard, there's that fear of, am I just throwing this all away? Am I losing all progress I've made? And like now I'll never get to really move forward once I decide to step off this hamster wheel. Can I ever really get back on?
Mm.
Can I move my life forward? And so there's just, there's so much fear in that. And then money, right? Like, even if
Yeah.
you have the money, I mean, not having the money is like a goal you've got to save to take your break. And that was true for me. Like I saved $40,000 in 18 months. Once I was super clear, I want this
Wow.
break. I just saved and saved and saved and made it happen. But some of my clients actually have the money, but they can't give themselves permission to spend it,
Yes.
and it's like, oh, but
I
it's
get
not
that.
for this, right? It's for an emergency. And I'm like, okay, yes, emergency funds are great, but like, are we saving for some fictional future that may never happen? And you're basically saying, I don't want to live my life in full color. I'd rather live in black and white the whole next like 40 years because
Mm.
I'm scared. Like that doesn't feel so good. Right. So it's
Oh my
overcoming
gosh.
a lot of that as well. So absolutely a million objections, everything under the sun. And the thing is there's always a reason not to go. It doesn't matter who you
Right.
are. There's always a reason, but do you focus on the reason not to go, or do you focus on the desire to go? And that is what I'm here for, right? Is to help people get
Yeah.
more clear on how to make that desire happen and to really learn how to manage the fear.
Yeah, and I mean this is kind of like esoteric or out there or whatever, but like why do you think it is that we do that? That we won't give ourselves permission to like live? Is it fear or like what I just wonder what you think about
Yeah.
that.
Well, I think a lot of it, we have this craving for safety and for certainty. And so
Okay.
I think when you talk about going outside of the lines, or you talk about taking a path that isn't well worn, right? Like when we're on a path that isn't us, there's still a safety and like it's super well worn and I can see where it leads, or I think I know where it leads. And so it feels good to be on it. But when you talk about doing something outside of the norm, you don't have as many reference points. I think it's so much easier to think about everything that you have today that you might lose. It's like
Mm.
our human nature, to focus on what we see and like, I don't want to give any of this up. But really,
Yeah.
some of it we don't even like, but it's like, I don't want to give any of this up, And so
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think it's like keeping us safe. I think our brain is just doing its very primitive job of keeping us safe. And what feels safe to us is what is comfortable, what is known, even if it's actually uncomfortable, there's a comfort to it. And
Mm.
so, I think it's just like, it's kind of how we're wired, like we're seeking safety. And I'm a big believer too that over time our comfort zones will shrink if we're not constantly extending them. So they kind of go in
Mm.
one or two directions. Like you're either expanding, or you're shrinking. And I think, when we get older, I'm 42 and I have been traveling now, off and on for, oh my goodness, like so long, like 10 years. And
Wow.
so, like, and so knowing that like travel to me feels good and easy and normal, but there was a time where it felt terrifying and
Mm.
scary as heck. And like I wanted it, but I also was very afraid of it. And so, it took the work of being that person over and over again to expand it. But now it's effortless for me to be a traveler because it's my normal. Right. And
Yeah.
I just think
Hmm.
like for some people, maybe if you've been making a lot of micro decisions to feel safer and live a slightly smaller, like more bubble, like live in the bubble, it
Yeah.
feels like, oh gosh, I don't want to bust my bubble. Like I feel really comfortable in here.
So true. Oh my gosh, that's spot on. I'm sure for many people that's exactly what it is. And I come from a perspective, I work with a lot of PTSD, so that's so true. I mean, just trying to keep that safe place, even if it's not the best thing for you, it's the most comfortable sometimes. So people
Yes.
tend to stay there, even though they've got desires to do other things. Yeah, so
Yes.
true.
Yeah.
Oh my
Human
gosh.
brains, fun things, right?
Yeah. So are you a like a full-on digital nomad, or do you have a home base that you come back to? I just curious
Yeah,
about that.
so I would consider myself fully nomadic in that I don't have a true home base, but I do have a mailing address, which is my
Okay.
mother's house. So I
Oh, same for me now.
yeah, oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so like I like to see her, right? So I will come home to see her and my niece and my dad, maybe for a week or two every few months if I'm able, especially when I'm traveling around the US, but I
Hmm.
don't spend nearly the majority of my time here. I'm kind of bopping around. And so I would say I'm truly nomadic at this point in time, although I feel like 2022 might be the year where I do establish some type of home base,
Oh,
even if
okay.
a temporary one, just because I feel like I really love, I really love my business. And I feel like some days, as I'm sure, you might know, like travel, it takes time and it takes energy. And so
Yeah.
I have to make that trade off. And I'm starting to feel like, oh, well, what would happen if for 3 months I was living somewhere in Mexico, and just like being at the beach for 3 months and working on my business. And so it's fun to dream. And I think
Yeah.
the cool thing is having the freedom to have anything be an option. But yeah, at this moment in time, I would say I'm pretty nomadic.
That's very cool. Yeah, we're struggling with that right now, trying to figure out like what is the optimal time period to stay in each place where you can feel comfortable, you can explore, you don't feel rushed, but also you can keep going, to see other
Yes.
places. So we're really trying to figure that out. Like we're 2 weeks in a place right now, but then we're going to stay a month in somewhere else. So we're just trying to figure that out. Is
Yeah.
there a time frame you found for you that's like kind of ideal, like with all this
Yeah.
traveling you do?
So for me, I love staying somewhere for 4 to 6 weeks. That is like
Nice.
a really good, if there was somewhere I loved, 3 months would be great. But I find that 4 to 6 weeks is good because the things that annoy you don't annoy you so badly that
Yeah.
like you're just like, oh, you know what I mean? But it's long enough to really get to know a place. So one of the first times I did this was when I was on my first career break, which was a 20-month break, but I took 5 weeks off to go to Argentina and I
Oh
just rented
wow.
an Airbnb there. And I lived in a really nice part of town in Buenos Aires, and I had the best time. And I found that those 4 weeks allowed me to see the city in a very unrushed pace, but to also have a favorite bakery, have a favorite restaurant, like, get people that know me around the corner at the grocery store. And it sort of gives you this sense of like, community and home, even if it's not even if it's not permanent, it just sort of like builds this warm sort of feeling. And I think it
Mm.
allows you to move at a slower, more expansive, spacious pace as far as getting to
Yeah.
know the place that you're in. And it doesn't feel like you have to cram everything in. And so, I'm a big fan of renting an Airbnb for a month also because there's a huge discount, right? Usually
Yes, right.
involved. Yeah. So if I like somewhere enough to go there and I'm not rushed, like I will do 1 month. And then if I love it, a few weeks into it, I might do another 2 to 4 weeks renting a different Airbnb in a different neighborhood to get a different point of view.
Oh, that's very cool. That's a great idea. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
think about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just figuring out the 30-day Airbnb thing. And then we're also like asking for bigger discounts, and people are really willing to do that, especially if they don't have anything booked. They're
Yes.
like, yeah, we'll knock 10% more off. We're like, awesome.
Isn't it so amazing? I love that you do that. That has saved me like hundreds of dollars,
Yeah.
just asking, right? In a nice way, just asking.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean they might say no, but it's it's supply and demand, I guess, because there's so many Airbnbs, you could just ask another one, and
Yeah.
because we, I mean we're okay with money, but we're definitely trying to budget, because we
Of
don't know,
course.
how things are going to go. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, great tips for that.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think what else to ask you. I guess the money piece is really big for people, like just trying to plan. So if they enter in with working with you and they don't have anything saved, I guess the initial part would be like how can we put a plan in place to make this happen like a year from now or 6 months, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So my client, yeah, they kind of split both worlds. So there are some people that don't have the money, they have a
Hmm.
dream, and part of that plan is figuring out how much will it cost and how do I save this as fast as possible. And the
Yeah.
other half, like I told you, have the money or they have the means, but it's like giving themselves permission, and figuring out how much am I willing to spend on this break. But for the savers, I have some really, I think, fundamental like philosophical points of view about money and money being energy and really making sure that you're spending it in a way that is aligned with your values versus spending it on
Nice.
things that don't matter to you, but you think you need to have them and they're not bringing you joy, but you're like
Ah.
oozing and bleeding money, like to have
Mm.
these things. And so I really like to help people save that money. So when you come to me and money is not something you have yet, or you have some savings or no savings, but you're not, towards your goal, or you're not even sure how much you need to save, that's definitely something that we work on. Like I make my clients track what they're spending now for about a month to get that information. And then we talk about and brainstorm, how can we create a life well lived, but that like diverts money to the fund to save for this break, right?
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we recently became digital nomads. We were getting rid of all of our stuff. And like even the process of trying to put stuff in storage, we're like, why do we have all of this crap? I mean,
Yes.
we just spend money because there's space to put things in. And so we do, and it's like,
Absolutely. We expand to fit the space that we're in. And I mean, I remember spending money like at Target on placemats that were just different. I was like, I feel like I need a different color, than the color
yeah,
I've had. And it's not that that's bad, but it's like, was that really aligned to what I value? No, but I was working a job and I felt like I needed some joy. And that was as close as I could get in that moment, was like freshening up the color on my placemat. And so when I started taking a look at where my money was going, I was able to make different decisions, right? And consume less
okay.
stuff, not because I was feeling deprived, but because I was like, well, that's not actually that important to me.
Yeah, and it's like, do I really need like subscriptions to like three different like TV providers? You know what I mean?
Right,
Like, I
exactly.
mean,
Yes.
really? Do I need to spend that much time watching TV?
Yeah,
I actually
absolutely.
don't, but I've got these subscriptions. It's
Yes,
kind of crazy when you start looking at it, but
it is. It's all about alignment, right? I think sometimes we just
yeah,
got to take a real look at what's going on and we've got to realign our spending with our values.
I love that. Oh my gosh, this is so helpful. So, as a sabbatical coach, if someone comes to you, is the goal like always to work towards absolutely no work while you're on the sabbatical, or okay? Because
That's
I'm
such a good
like,
question. No,
how do
I
people
love
do this? Do people
Yes.
not work?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love this
Yeah.
question. So, yes. So, if we uncover, I think I've had maybe one or two clients that had their own business and wanted to maintain some connection to that
Okay.
business, but
Yeah.
not working, full time. But I would say 99% of my clients, it's a true, true break. And I think
Okay.
there's a discomfort in that, but there's also so much learning, information, and just transformation in that space. And so it might look like, right, there's a 6 month break and 3 months of that or 2 months of that are fully disconnected. And then the other
Mm,
4 months look a different way. And that's totally fine too. But I think for it to be a real sabbatical, you have to take the sense of obligation away and you have to set yourself free. And like, who am I when I'm free? Who am I when I don't feel like there's a person in the background waiting for me or expecting
mhm.
something from me? Like, what does that level of lightness feel like? And sometimes it's scary and people have a hard
Yeah.
time like having empty space or having all of that freedom and all of that flexibility. And that's a good thing to learn too. Like, what
Yeah.
do I do? You know what I mean? Who am I? What do I want to fill my time with? I just think there's so much personal learning in that. So, yes, I would say definitely a disconnect. But for some people, the disconnect does not maintain the whole entire time. Like, there might be, some hybrid
Hmm.
experience, but for sure, at some point, being able to just absolutely be beholden to no one.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That makes me a little anxious just hearing you say
I can imagine. Yeah.
that.
I can
I've got
imagine.
like 8 income streams. I'm like constantly working. I'm like a total workaholic, really. So going
Yeah.
on a retreat in Costa Rica coming up soon, and it's like, they sent out a memo like the internet is not good here, just FYI. And immediately I was
You
like,
like,
oh my god, I don't know if I can do this.
yeah. But I think
but
it's
but it's real, yeah.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah,
it's so amazing that you're going on a retreat where you have to figure that out, right? Because at the end
yeah.
of the day, what will happen is you will figure it out. And maybe there will be like one ball that gently like drops to the ground, doesn't crash or break, but it like rolls to the ground. But you pick it up and you go, oh, no one died. Nothing like catastrophic happened. And so it creates
Yeah.
evidence for you that it can be safe, right? To disconnect in this tiny way. And then maybe next time, you're like, I want to take 10 days off or I want to go for 2 weeks, and it's like building confidence. And also, honestly, like even, understanding the process. Like you said, you have multiple income streams. And so sometimes we learn trial by fire. So like having to do it and having to figure out will teach you, oh, this is how I disconnect from this income stream. This is what I have to do to set this up. Oh, I actually need an assistant or a person to do these things for me next time I go if I want to go for longer. Like I think
Hmm.
sometimes the only way to learn is by doing.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. And I actually have a team, but I micromanage the team. So so letting go of the team, letting go and letting the team is also a
Yeah.
skill. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh, so funny. Anyway, gosh, this has just been enlightening and I love it. And I cannot wait for the listeners to hear this because it's so needed, especially for us as therapists. Like just the idea of a sabbatical is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And I
I'm
think,
so glad you're there to help people.
yeah. And to your point, I think you can take it in steps, right? You don't have to go from 0 to 6 months off. Although, some of my corporate clients will do that. But,
Yeah.
if you have something that you really enjoy and you don't feel like you want to or can leave for 6 months, that's okay too. You can start with a 1 week sabbatical, but like practice really disconnecting and practice being clear about what you need from that time and work your way up if you need to. But I love that you are open to having this conversation. And I think like it's a really
Yes.
important, I think it's a really important thing to be talking about, especially now in the context of everything going on. So I'm just so thankful to you for making space
Oh,
so that we
yeah.
could talk to
Thank you.
everyone about this. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so thankful that there are people like you out there that can help people do this. Like when I read the description of what you do, I was like, this is amazing.
I love
I
that.
love
Thank you so
it.
much. Yeah.
Well, thank you. So how do people contact you if they want to use your services or learn more about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can find me online at bestbreakever.com. So that is my website. So you can find me there. And I have a free training that explains more about what a career break is, but also like how you would plan for one and start that process. But then also, I do a free assessment on timeline. So you can find that there on the website as
Oh,
well. So if you're like, well, how long would I need to like really wait to start a break? And how long of a break would I want to take? You can hop on for that free assessment. And then otherwise, you can find me on Instagram. I love to share stories and photos from my travels and just, the things I'm learning and tips that people can have when they're starting to like move towards the direction of taking a break. And so my Instagram is K McGhee Coaching. That's KMCGHEE Coaching.
I love it. I'm going to go follow you right after this.
Yay.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you so much for listening to the Traveling Therapist podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to thetravelingtherapist.com, where you'll be able to learn more about my journey, the courses I've created for you, and other exciting resources to make your dreams become a reality. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your traveling therapist friends, subscribe to the podcast, and if you loved this episode, please leave a review.